I know I went too far. But when he signed my termination letter with that casual smile, I wondered if he realized he was driving a knife into the back of someone who'd kept his darkest secret. They say revenge is a dish best served cold. Mine was served at 8:55 a.m. on a Monday morning, right before the company-wide meeting, when 50 employees opened an email that would destroy everything he'd built. And the beautiful part? He still doesn't know it was me. My name is Reagan Miles. And until 3 months ago, I believed in loyalty the way others believe in God. Blindly, desperately, foolishly. 34 years old, single, and dedicated to a company that I thought was my second home. Vesperis Creative in Cedar Hill, Tennessee, wasn't just where I worked, it was where I bled creativity into campaigns that won awards. Where I spent more nights than I care to count perfecting presentations. Where I built what I thought was an unbreakable bond with my best friend, Grant Hollis. Even now, typing his name makes my fingers hesitate over the keyboard. We met 15 years ago in a dingy college bar, both of us drunk on cheap beer and bigger dreams. He was the charismatic one, the natural leader who could sell ice to Eskimos. I was the creative genius who could turn his wild visions into reality. When he started Vesperis 7 years ago, I was employee number 3. No equity, no fancy title, just his promise that we'd build something extraordinary together. And we did. God, we really did. The termination letter sits on my kitchen counter now, coffee-stained and crumpled from where I've grabbed it in fits of rage. Due to restructuring needs and strategic realignment. Corporate bullshit speak for, you know too much. But that morning when Grant called me into his corner office, the one with the view of downtown Cedar Hill that we used to joke was worth half his salary, his hands were steady as he pushed the paper across his mahogany desk. It's not personal. Reagan, he'd said, not quite meeting my eyes. Behind him, the wall displayed the Adweek covers featuring campaigns I'd conceived, strategies I'd developed, victories we'd supposedly shared. The board thinks we need fresh perspectives for the next phase. Fresh perspectives, like Quinn Morrison, the 22-year-old intern with the Harvard MBA and the laugh that tinkled like champagne glasses at company parties. The one I'd seen slipping out of his hotel room at the Marriott 2 weeks before, her lipstick smudged, his wedding ring conspicuously absent. But I'm getting ahead of myself. This story, this confession, whatever you want to call it, doesn't start with the ending. It starts with a photo on my phone, taken by accident at last year's company Christmas party. Grant and Quinn in the background, his hand where it shouldn't be. Her face turned up to his with an expression I recognized too well. It starts with whispered conversations in the break room that stopped when I walked in. It starts with my access to key accounts being revoked without explanation. My name, mysteriously dropping off important email chains. It starts with the night Grant drunk dialed me at 2 a.m., slurring about how Delaney didn't understand him anymore, how marriage was a cage, how I was the only one who really knew him. I'd driven to his house, made him coffee, listened to him ramble, until dawn. 3 days later, he announced Quinn's promotion to Creative Strategy Manager, a position that didn't exist until she needed it. The truth is, I could have survived the betrayal. I'd weathered worse storms. But as I sat in that office, watching him slide my entire career into a manila envelope with the casual indifference of someone ordering lunch, something inside me didn't break. It crystallized. He'd forgotten the most important thing about me, the quality that made me invaluable to Vesperis for 7 years. I'm exceptionally good at keeping secrets. And I'm even better at revealing them. College was where Grant and I became inseparable. University of Memphis. 2005, both of us majoring in marketing with minor delusions of grandeur. He was the guy who showed up to 8 a.m. lectures in yesterday's clothes, charming professors into extensions with that crooked smile. I was the girl who color-coded her notes and actually read the textbooks. Somehow, we worked. Our first business venture was a disaster, a social media management company we started in his garage, back when Facebook still required a college email. We lost every cent of our investment, but Grant spun it into a learning experience on his resume. That was his gift, turning shit into gold with words alone. My gift was making sure there was something real behind the words. When Vesperis launched, Grant needed me. Not just wanted, needed. He had the connections, the venture capital buddies from his father's country club, the ability to walk into a room and make everyone believe in his vision. But I was the one who turned that vision into campaigns that actually worked. The Hartley Electronics rebrand that put us on the map, my concept, the viral video series for Brennan Automotive, I wrote every script, the award-winning nonprofit campaign that made everyone cry at the Addies. I stayed up for 48 hours straight, perfecting it while Grant was in Vegas at a networking conference. I never asked for credit. That's what friends do, right? They lift each other up. Delaney came into the picture year 3 of Vesperis. Blonde, architectural cheekbones, the kind of woman who looked like she was born in Pilates clothes. Her father owned half the commercial real estate in Nashville. Grant married her within 8 months, and suddenly Vesperis had a new office, better clients, and Grant had a house in Belle Meade with a pool that looked like it belonged in a magazine. I stood at their wedding as a groomsman. Yes, groomsman, because Grant insisted his best friend had to be by his side. Gender be damned. Delaney's smile was perfect that day, but her eyes when she looked at me were calculating, measuring. She knew what everyone else was too polite to say, that Grant and I were too close for comfort. "You know he loves you," she'd said to me at the reception, 5 champagnes deep. "Just not the way you want him to." She was wrong about that. I never wanted Grant romantically. What I wanted was simpler and somehow more complicated. I wanted to matter. I wanted the years of sacrifice, the unpaid overtime, the ideas I gifted him, the secrets I kept. I wanted them to mean something, like the Jacksonville incident. Year 2 of Vesperis. Grant had gotten drunk at a client dinner and crashed the rental car into a mailbox. Potential DUI, potential scandal, potential loss of our biggest account. I took the blame. Said I was driving. Paid the fine with money I didn't have. Took the points on my license, smiled when the client made jokes about women drivers for the next 6 months. Grant promised he'd never forget what I'd done for him. He promised a lot of things. The changes started so gradually, I almost missed them. First, I wasn't invited to the strategic planning retreat in Asheville. Grant said it was executives only, though I'd been at everyone before. Then my office got moved from the 3rd floor to the 2nd, to be closer to the creative team. Then there were the closed-door meetings with Quinn that ran long. The sudden need for me to report to the new creative director he'd hired from Atlanta. The slow erosion of everything I'd built. But I still believed in us, in our history. In the nights we'd spent building Vesperis from nothing, eating Chinese takeout on the floor of our first office, dreaming about what we'd become. I believed right up until the moment I found out about Prague. The Prague account was mine. 3 months of preparation, countless revisions, a presentation I'd practiced until I could deliver it in my sleep. The morning of the pitch. Grant called to say I wasn't needed. "Davidson wants a smaller group," he said. "You understand." I understood when Quinn posted Instagram stories from the celebration dinner that night. I understood when she was named lead on the account the next week. I understood perfectly. Trust is a funny thing. It takes years to build, seconds to shatter. And when it goes, it takes everything else with it. Every memory gets re-examined, every kindness reconsidered. Was I ever really his friend, or was I just useful? Was our partnership real, or was I just another resource to be exploited and discarded? The answer came with my termination letter. Friends don't dispose of friends when fresher models come along. The unraveling started with whispers. October, 3 months before my termination. I walked into the break room to find 3 junior designers huddled over their phones. Their conversation died the moment they saw me. "Hey, Reagan," one mumbled, suddenly fascinated by the coffee maker. That should have been my first warning. By November, I was a ghost in my own office. Emails I should have been copied on arrived as forwards from sympathetic colleagues. The weekly creative meetings I'd run for 5 years. Suddenly Quinn was sending out the invites. My name conspicuously absent. When I confronted Grant, he waved it off. We're trying to give others growth opportunities. You understand, right? You can't hoard all the leadership experience. Hoard, like I was some greedy child clutching toys. The restructuring rumors started after Thanksgiving. Davidson Communications was acquiring smaller agencies. There would be layoffs, redundancies eliminated. Grant assured me I was safe. Your family. Reagan. This place wouldn't exist without you. He said this while scrolling through his phone, not even pretending to make eye contact. Then came that night at the Marriott. I wasn't spying. I'd met a client for drinks at the bar, discussing a freelance project. My first hint that maybe I should prepare for the worst. It was past 11 when I saw them in the lobby. Grant's hand on Quinn's lower back, guiding her toward the elevators. The intimate lean of their bodies. The way she laughed at something he whispered. The wedding ring he'd slipped into his pocket. My client was still talking about deliverables and timelines. But all I could hear was white noise. All I could see was Grant pressing the elevator button. Quinn's hand finding his as the doors closed. I confronted him the next morning. Not aggressively. I wasn't ready for that yet. Just mentioned I'd seen him at the Marriott. Let the silence stretch until he filled it. Client emergency, he said too quickly. Quinn had the files on her laptop. You know how Davidson is about response times. At 11 p.m.? His face shifted then, from defensive to something colder. Are you seriously questioning me, after everything I've done for you? Christ, Reagan, you sound paranoid. Maybe you should take some time off. You've been stressed lately. Stressed, paranoid, emotional. The greatest hits of gaslighting, delivered by someone who used to call me at 3 a.m. to talk through his anxiety attacks. 2 weeks later, I was removed from the Brennan Automotive Renewal, our biggest retainer client, one I'd managed for 4 years. Quinn has fresh ideas, Grant explained. We need to show Brennan we're evolving. Fresh ideas that looked remarkably similar to my concepts from last quarter, repackaged with her name on them. The humiliations accumulated like paper cuts. My parking spot reassigned. My assistant redistributed to support the team. The company credit card canceled due to new policies. Though Quinn's Instagram showed plenty of client dinners at restaurants I used to book. When the invitation for the annual leadership retreat didn't come. I didn't even ask why. December brought the company holiday party. I almost didn't go, but stubbornness won. I wore my best dress, the black one that made me feel like I could conquer worlds. I smiled through the speeches, applauded when Quinn was announced as the newest member of the senior leadership team. I even raised my glass for the toast. That's when I heard it. Delaney, drunk on Prosecco and proximity to other trophy wives, holding court near the bar. Grant says she's become a liability. Too emotional, too invested. He's giving her until New Year to find something else. But you know Reagan, she never could take a hint. The room kept spinning with laughter and Christmas music. But I was underwater, drowning in the revelation that everyone knew. Everyone except me had been watching my execution in slow motion, some with pity, most with relief that it wasn't them. I left early, threw up in the parking garage, and sat in my car until my hands stopped shaking. That night, I scrolled through 7 years of photos, emails, memories, looking for the moment it changed, the thing I'd done wrong, the reason I deserved this. But there was no reason beyond the oldest one. I'd become inconvenient. I knew too much, remembered too much, had been there for too much. Quinn was a blank slate where Grant could write whatever story he wanted. I was a history book full of inconvenient truths. The termination meeting was scheduled for 9 a.m. on a Tuesday. I knew it was coming. HR doesn't usually request quick check-ins with mandatory attendance. I dressed carefully that morning. Professional, but not desperate. I even stopped for good coffee. The expensive kind I'd denied myself for years while building Grant's dreams. When I walked into that office for the last time as an employee, I wasn't sad anymore. I wasn't even angry. Not really. I was something far more dangerous. I was clear. Crystal clear about what had happened, what was happening, and what would happen next. Grant had made one crucial miscalculation. He thought I was just another discarded employee who would slink away quietly. maybe write a bitter LinkedIn post, maybe whisper at industry events. He forgot that I'd been in every meeting, every strategy session, every crisis management call. I knew where all the bodies were buried, and I knew exactly how to exhume them. The first week after termination, I didn't leave my apartment. I subsisted on wine and rage, alternating between crying into my pillow and fantasizing about walking into Vesparis with a baseball bat. My severance package, 2 months' pay, and a non-disclosure agreement I hadn't signed yet sat on my coffee table like a taunt. 2 months for 7 years. That's what I was worth. By week 2, the wine wasn't enough. I started with bourbon, Grant's favorite, the expensive stuff he kept in his office for special clients. I'd bought him his first bottle when we landed the Hartley account. Now I was drinking alone at 2 p.m. on a Wednesday, scrolling through LinkedIn as former colleagues announced their promotions, their new projects, their continued existence in the world I'd been expelled from. Quinn's promotion announcement got 847 likes. Thrilled to announce my new role as VP of Creative Strategy at Vesparis Creative. Grateful for the mentorship and opportunities. The comments were a chorus of congratulations. Grant had commented with fire emojis and couldn't be prouder of our rising star. Like she'd earned it through years of sacrifice. Like she hadn't been serving coffee 6 months ago. The anonymous message came on a Thursday night through my personal email. He did the same thing to me and to others. Jennifer Reeves, 2019. Melissa Chang, 2021. Look them up. He always picks ones who have something to lose, who won't fight back. But you're different, aren't you? You know too much. Don't let him win. A friend who understands. Jennifer Reeves. I remembered her vaguely, a project manager who'd left suddenly for personal reasons. Melissa Chang had been in accounts. Barely lasted 8 months. I'd never connected the dots before. But now, with this new lens, the pattern emerged like a photograph in developer fluid. I hired a private investigator with my savings. Patricia Morse, a former FBI agent who specialized in corporate misconduct. She wasn't cheap, but when I explained what I needed, she offered a payment plan. I hate men like him, she said simply. They count on women being too ashamed or too scared to fight back. Patricia was thorough. Within 2 weeks, she had everything. Hotel receipts, security footage, credit card records showing a pattern of dinners, gifts, weekend trips. Grant had been careful, but not careful enough. The company credit card he'd used for his client meetings with Quinn told a different story when cross-referenced with actual client calendars. But the real gold mine came from Jennifer Reeves herself. Patricia tracked her down in Atlanta, working for a nonprofit, still carrying the trauma of her Vesparis experience. She had emails, screenshots, a recorded phone call where Grant explicitly offered her a promotion in exchange for being more flexible with boundaries. I wanted to sue, Jennifer told Patricia, but he had lawyers and I had student loans. So I took the severance and ran. Melissa's story was worse. 25 years old, first-generation immigrant, work visa dependent on her job. Grant had pursued her relentlessly. And when she finally refused definitively, her position was eliminated for budgetary reasons. She'd had to leave the country. 3 women in 5 years. That we knew of. I spent hours studying the evidence Patricia compiled, memorizing every detail, every date, every lie. Grant's pattern was clear. Young women, usually new to the industry. Always in positions where he held absolute power over their careers. The relationships lasted 3 to 6 months, ending when they either demanded more or threatened to tell Delaney. Then came the termination, always disguised as restructuring or performance issues, always with enough severance to buy silence. But I wasn't a 22-year-old intern. I wasn't dependent on him for a visa. And I sure as hell wasn't going to take the money and disappear. The plan formed slowly, crystallizing like ice on a window. I couldn't sue. The legal fees would destroy me. And Grant had better lawyers. I couldn't go to the board. Half of them were his golf buddies. The other half were Delaney's father's associates. Traditional channels were closed to me, but I had something better. institutional knowledge, and absolutely nothing left to lose. I created a new email account. Truth in Advertising 2024 protonmail.com. Untraceable, anonymous, and beautifully ironic. I spent 3 days crafting the perfect message, something that would be impossible to ignore, impossible to suppress, impossible to spin. The subject line came to me at 3 a.m. Perfect in its simplicity. What your leadership doesn't want you to know. Inside would be everything: the emails, the photos, the recordings, the receipts. Not just Quinn, but Jennifer and Melissa too. A pattern of behavior so clear, so documented, that no amount of PR could wash it clean. But I needed to be strategic about the recipients. Not just anyone, I needed the people who mattered. The senior managers who'd been passed over for promotions Quinn received. The HR director who'd always seemed uncomfortable with Grant's mentorship style. The board member who'd asked too many questions at the last quarterly review. The client who'd specifically requested me for their campaign and been told I was unavailable. 50 people, carefully chosen. Each one someone who either had power, influence, or a really big mouth. I set the email to send Monday morning, 8:55 a.m. 5 minutes before the weekly all-hands meeting, enough time for people to open it, not enough time for Grant to do damage control. That Sunday night, I sat with my laptop, finger hovering over the schedule button. Once I pressed it, there was no going back. My career in advertising would be over. Whistleblowers never work again. Everyone knows that. But as I thought about Jennifer in Atlanta, Melissa back in Korea, Quinn probably in Grant's bed right now thinking she was special, thinking she was different, I realized my career was already over. The only question was whether Grant's would be too. I pressed send. Then I opened another bottle of wine and waited for morning. Sunday night stretched like pulled taffy. Each minute an eternity. I'd scheduled the email, but I wasn't done. The base package needed to be perfect, undeniable, comprehensive, devastating. I called it the Thanksgiving Massacre in my head. Though Thanksgiving was long past, this was about giving everyone something to be truly thankful for: the truth. The Google Drive folder was a masterpiece of organization. Folder 1, the Quinn files. Security footage from the Marriott, timestamp visible. Grant's hand on her thigh at what was supposedly a client dinner. The company credit card statements showing charges at Le Bernardin during times when official calendars showed Grant in internal strategy sessions. Quinn's Instagram stories that mysteriously aligned with Grant's business trips to Miami, New York, Austin. Folder 2. The pattern. Jennifer's emails, including the one where Grant wrote, "Your career trajectory here depends on how well we understand each other outside the office." Melissa's termination letter, dated exactly 1 week after her formal complaint to HR about uncomfortable advances. The complaint that mysteriously disappeared from her personnel file, but that she'd had the foresight to photograph. Folder 3. The cover-up. Emails between Grant and the HR director discussing potential liability issues and how to manage the narrative. The NDA template specifically modified for female employees under 30. The accounting irregularities where severance packages were disguised as consulting fees to avoid board scrutiny. But the crown jewel was the audio file. Patricia had worked magic with her connections, getting hold of a recording from the hotel bar where Grant had gotten drunk with a client and bragged about his system. His voice, slurred but unmistakable. The key is to pick the hungry ones, the ones who think talent matters more than playing the game. They're so grateful for the opportunity, they'll do anything, and when they get difficult, you just remind them how replaceable they are. I titled that file, "In His Own Words." At 4 a.m. Monday, I made one addition. A personal note, not from me, but from a concerned observer. Dear Vesperis family, for years, you've wondered why talented women leave this company so suddenly. Why promising careers end in mysterious restructuring. Why certain people rise despite questionable qualifications, while others disappear despite exceptional performance. The attached documents provide answers. This is not about one affair. This is about systematic abuse of power, documented across 5 years and multiple victims. This is about your HR department's complicity, your board's willful blindness, and your leadership's belief that some people are disposable. Every receipt is real, every email is verified, every recording is authentic. The question now is simple. What kind of company do you want to work for? Someone who believes you deserve the truth. I added one more document, a spreadsheet showing the correlation between Grant's special mentoring and sudden departures, promotion patterns, and salary discrepancies. Anyone with basic pattern recognition could see it. The data didn't lie, even when everyone else did. 5 a.m. I created backup sends through 3 different anonymous email services, staggered at 5-minute intervals. If IT caught one, the others would get through. I'd learned about redundancy from Grant himself. Always have a backup plan for your backup plan. Reagan. 6 a.m. I showered, dressed in my best suit. The charcoal one I'd worn to win the Hartley account. If today was my professional funeral, I'd be dressed for it. 7 a.m. I sat at my kitchen table with coffee and watched the clock. The scheduled send was locked, irreversible, perfect. 8 a.m. My phone started buzzing with texts from former colleagues still at Vesparis. Normal Monday morning complaints about traffic, coffee, weekend hangovers. They had no idea what was coming. 8:30 a.m. I opened my laptop to monitor the send. Everything was greenlit, ready to deploy. 8:45 a.m. I poured a glass of champagne. Seemed appropriate for a celebration or a wake. And this was both. 8:50 a.m. My hands started shaking. Second thoughts crashed over me like a wave. Was I really doing this? Was I destroying a company, multiple careers, lives? Then I remembered Jennifer's voice on Patricia's recording. He told me I was special. Then he told me I was worthless. I believed both. 8:54 a.m. Final system check. All sends queued and ready. 8:55 a.m. The first email deployed, then the second, then the third. 50 copies of truth spreading through Vesparis Creative like wildfire through dry grass. 8:56 a.m. My phone exploded, text after text, call after call. I turned it off. 8:57 a.m. I opened my personal email on my laptop. Already, 3 forwarded copies of my anonymous message had been sent to me by shocked former colleagues. The share rate was exponential. 8:58 a.m. I pulled up Vesparis' internal Slack through a backdoor login I'd kept. The general channel was mayhem. Everyone check your email now. What the fuck is this? Is this real? Someone get Grant. Where is HR? 8:59 a.m. Quinn's Instagram went private. Smart girl. Faster reflexes than I'd given her credit for. 9 a.m. The all-hands meeting was supposed to start. I pictured the conference room, everyone staring at their phones instead of the presentation screen. Grant walking in, confident, unaware that his empire had already crumbled, that everyone in that room had just seen him naked in ways he'd never intended. I refreshed Slack one more time. The last message I saw before my access was revoked was from the CFO. All hands is canceled. Senior leadership meeting now. Legal on standby. I closed my laptop, finished my champagne, and smiled. Not a happy smile, not a vindictive one. Just the smile of someone who'd finally balanced a very long-standing ledger. The beauty of the plan wasn't just in its execution, it was in its completeness. There was no spinning this, no controlling the narrative, no quietly making it go away. By sending it to 50 carefully chosen people, I'd ensured it would spread beyond Vesparis within hours. Ad agencies are gossip machines. By lunch, every agency in Nashville would know. By dinner, it would be national industry news. Grant had taught me well. In advertising, perception is reality. I'd just changed everyone's perception of him. Permanently. By noon, my former colleague Sarah called from her personal phone. Reagan, holy shit. The office is in complete meltdown. Quinn left at 9:30, just walked out crying. HR has been locked in the conference room all morning. 3 more women have come forward with complaints about Grant. Did you know about Madison from accounting? Or Rebecca from the Austin office? I hadn't known. The pattern was even deeper than I'd uncovered. By 2 p.m., the Nashville Business Journal had picked up the story. Vesper's creative CEO accused of serial sexual harassment in leaked documents. They'd somehow gotten screenshots of the Slack chaos. The comment section was already at 200 and climbing. By 3 p.m., Delaney Hollis arrived at Vesper's. Sarah texted me updates in real time. She's screaming in the lobby, security trying to calm her down. She just threw her wedding ring at the receptionist. Grant locked in his office, won't come out. By 4 p.m., an emergency board meeting was called. The corporate lawyers had arrived, suits sharp enough to cut glass, faces grim. Someone had leaked the audio recording to Adweek. Grant's drunken words, "The key is to pick the hungry ones," became the pull quote that would define him forever. Tuesday morning brought the formal announcement: Grant Hollis has been placed on indefinite administrative leave pending investigation. But everyone knew what that meant. He was done. The emails started flooding my personal account. Not the professional one, that bridge was burned, but the Gmail I'd used for personal connections. Women I'd worked with, women from other agencies, women who'd been at industry events where Grant had been. Each with a story, each thanking me for doing what they couldn't. Jennifer Reeves called from Atlanta. "I've been in therapy for 2 years because of him. Today feels like the first day I can breathe." But the most unexpected message came from Melissa Chang, writing from Seoul. "I thought I was weak for leaving, for not fighting. Thank you for showing me I wasn't weak. I was just alone. We all were." Wednesday brought consequences. 3 major clients pulled their accounts from Vesper's, citing values misalignment. The Austin office had a walkout. Half the creative department threatened to quit unless the entire leadership team was replaced. The company that Grant had built over 7 years was eating itself alive in 72 hours. Quinn's LinkedIn profile disappeared entirely. Someone told me she'd moved back to Boston, to her parents' house. Part of me felt sorry for her. She was 22, ambitious, and thought she'd found a shortcut to success. She didn't realize she was just the latest in a long line. Thursday, the board acted. Grant Hollis was terminated for cause, effective immediately. No severance, no graceful exit, no carefully worded press release about pursuing other opportunities. The statement was clinical in its brutality. Following investigation into multiple credible allegations of sexual harassment and misuse of company resources, the board has voted unanimously to terminate Mr. Hollis's employment and all associations with Vesper's Creative. His name was already being scrubbed from the website, the lobby, the legacy. Patricia called that afternoon. 3 more women want to file civil suits. Jennifer's joining them. With the evidence we collected, Grant's looking at personal bankruptcy minimum. Possible criminal charges if the DA gets interested. Friday brought an unexpected visitor. Delaney Hollis stood at my apartment door. Designer sunglasses not quite hiding her swollen eyes. "I know it was you," she said simply. I didn't deny it, didn't confirm it either. Just stood there, waiting. "I knew," she continued, voice hollow. "About the affairs, all of them. But I thought if I just held on, if I played the perfect wife, he'd grow out of it, that it was just a phase, a midlife crisis thing." She pulled off her sunglasses, and I saw the exhaustion carved into her face. "Thank you," she whispered, "for doing what I was too much of a coward to do." She left without another word, her Bentley purring away from my middle-class apartment complex. The weekend brought offers. 3 agencies wanted to hire me as a consultant for their HR departments, to help them identify and prevent similar situations. A journalist from the New York Times wanted to interview me for a piece on corporate whistleblowing. A publisher reached out about a potential book deal. I turned them all down. Monday, exactly 1 week after the email sent, I got a message through LinkedIn from the newly appointed interim CEO of Vesper's, Margaret Chen, the board member who'd asked too many questions. One of my 50 recipients. "Ms. Miles, Vesparis owes you an apology and a debt that cannot be repaid. While I understand you may have no interest in returning, I want you to know that your position, should you want it, is here, with full back pay, a promotion to Chief Creative Officer, and my personal guarantee that Vesparis will never again be a place where talent is compromised by abuse of power. I stared at that message for an hour. The vindication was sweet, intoxicating even. Everything I'd wanted professionally was being offered on a silver platter. But I realized something. I didn't want it anymore. Vesparis, even reformed, would always be the place where I'd learned that loyalty was a luxury I couldn't afford. Where I'd discovered that 7 years of friendship meant less than 6 months of affairs. Where I'd had to destroy everything to save anyone. I typed my response. Thank you for your offer. I've already accepted a position elsewhere. It wasn't true yet, but it would be. Somewhere out there was a company, a future, a life that didn't require me to choose between my integrity and my career. The story broke wide the next week. The Vesparis whistleblower, they called me, though my name was never officially attached. Grant's fall became a cautionary tale at business schools, a numbered Me Too watershed moment in the advertising industry. Policies changed, other women came forward at other agencies. The dominoes fell and fell and fell. And Grant? Last I heard, he was living in his mother's guest house in Franklin, selling insurance and drinking himself through a divorce that would take everything the lawsuits didn't. Sometimes I wondered if I should feel guilty, if I'd gone too far. If there had been another way, then I'd remember his smile as he signed my termination letter. Casual, dismissive, like I was nothing. I wasn't nothing. None of us were. We were just underestimated. 3 months later, I sat in my favorite coffee shop in East Nashville, the one with the exposed brick and overpriced lattes that Grant used to mock me for loving. The morning newspaper was spread before me, though I'd already read the headline online. Former Vesparis CEO Grant Hollis settles multiple lawsuits, files for bankruptcy. The article was thorough, clinical in its dissection of his fall. 7 lawsuits settled out of court. Divorce finalized with Delaney taking everything that wasn't already claimed by lawyers. His reputation so thoroughly destroyed that even his father's country club had revoked his membership. The golden boy of Nashville advertising reduced to a cautionary tale, a name spoken in whispers at industry events. I didn't celebrate. There was no champagne this time, no sense of victory, just a quiet acknowledgement that justice, when it finally arrives, rarely feels the way you imagined it would. My phone buzzed. A text from Sarah. Did you see? Quinn just got hired at a nonprofit in Portland. Changed her name professionally. Starting over. Starting over. We were all doing that, in our own ways. I'd taken a position with a small creative consultancy, one that specialized in campaigns for nonprofits and social causes. The pay was less than half what I'd made at Vesparis, but I slept through the night now. My ideas had my name on them. My colleagues looked me in the eye when they spoke to me. It was enough. More than enough. The coffee shop door chimed, and Margaret Chen walked in. We'd been meeting monthly since she took over Vesparis, not professionally. Just 2 women who'd survived the same war from different trenches. Revenue's up 12% this quarter, she said, settling into the chair across from me. 3 new clients specifically cited our new culture initiatives as why they chose us. That's good, I said, meaning it. The people still at Vesparis deserved better than what they'd had. They deserved what Margaret was building. You know, she said, stirring her coffee thoughtfully. No one ever asked me if I knew, before the emails, if I suspected what Grant was doing. I waited. I did, she admitted. Not the extent, not the pattern. But I knew something was wrong. I just didn't know how to prove it, how to fight it. The board was his board, HR reported to him. Every system was designed to protect him. Until it wasn't, I said quietly. Until you made it impossible to ignore. She looked at me directly. You know you saved lives, right? Not metaphorically. Rebecca from Austin was considering. She was in a dark place. Your emails gave her the courage to get help, to realize it wasn't her fault. We sat in silence for a moment, the weight of what could have been hanging between us. Any regrets? Margaret asked. I thought about it, really thought about it. About the nuclear option I'd chosen, the bridges I'd burned, the career I'd destroyed, my own included, in many ways. No, I said finally. My only regret is that I believed in him for so long, that I mistook exploitation for friendship, manipulation for mentorship. Margaret raised her coffee cup. To learning the difference. To learning the difference, I echoed. After she left, I stayed in the coffee shop, watching the world pass by the window. Young professionals hurried past, heading to their offices, their meetings, their own complicated relationships with power and ambition. I wondered how many of them were in their own Grant situations, believing themselves special, indispensable, safe. The truth I'd learned wasn't just about Grant or Visparis or even the advertising industry. It was about the dangerous myth of professional loyalty, the idea that any company, any boss, any colleague deserves your sacrifice without reciprocation. We give our 20s and 30s to these places, believing we're building something together, only to discover we were just building someone else's empire. But here's what Grant never understood, what none of them understand. When you push people into corners, when you take everything from them, you also free them. From fear, from hope, from the need to play nice. You make them dangerous. My phone lit up with a LinkedIn notification. Another young woman reaching out, asking for advice about her uncomfortable situation with her boss. The fifth one this week, I'd become something I never intended, a lighthouse for women navigating these treacherous waters. I opened my laptop and started typing my response. The same advice I gave all of them. Document everything. Trust your instincts. Know your worth. And remember, loyalty is a luxury you can't afford when the person demanding it wouldn't give you theirs. The cursor blinked at the end of my message, and I added one more line. You're not alone. None of us are anymore. I hit send and closed my laptop. Outside, Nashville hummed with its usual energy, unaware or uncaring about the small revolutions happening in its office buildings. The Grant Hollises being exposed, the Reagan Mileses finding their voices. But I knew. We all knew. The ones who'd been through it, who'd survived it, who'd fought back in whatever ways we could. Best friend. Maybe Grant and I were, once, in some twisted definition of the term. But I'd learned that real friendship, real loyalty, doesn't require you to shrink yourself, to accept less, to keep secrets that eat you alive. Sometimes the most loyal thing you can do, for yourself, for others, for the truth, is to burn it all down and start over. And sometimes the best revenge isn't served cold. Sometimes it's served at exactly 8:55 a.m. on a Monday morning, right before an all-hands meeting. When 50 people open an email that changes everything, Grant taught me about advertising, about perception and reality. But I taught him a better lesson. Never underestimate someone who has nothing left to lose, because they're the ones who change the world. Thank you so much for listening to my story. I'd love to know where you're listening from. Drop a comment below and let's connect. If this story resonated with you, please consider subscribing to the channel and sharing your own thoughts and experiences. Your stories matter too. And this community is stronger when we share them together.